El Dorado Jane Doe is the name given to an unidentified American woman, an identity thief, estimated to be between 18 and 30 years of age, who was murdered on July 10, 1991, in El Dorado, Arkansas, in room 121 of the now torn-down Whitehall Motel. The Jane Doe used multiple names while alive, including Mercedes, which is how her friends knew her, Cheryl Ann Wick, which was the name on the identification card found on her, Kelly Lee Carr, Kelly Carr, Shannon Wiley, Cheryl Kaufman, and Sharon Wiley, none of which were found to be her real name. She was known to have lived in various states prior to her death, including Texas and Louisiana, and was alleged to have worked in prostitution. While alive, Mercedes had shared varying accounts of her past, suggesting she had been arrested at one point, had one or two children, and had possibly been involved in a bank robbery on the East Coast. Her murderer was identified as her ex-boyfriend and alleged pimp, James McAlpin, and he was quickly convicted, but her true identity remains unknown. Mercedes' earliest verified location is Dallas, Texas, where she was arrested for prostitution. She also worked at a KFC there. After leaving Dallas, she traveled to Shreveport, Louisiana, before going to El Dorado in early 1991. She also worked as a topless dancer in Little Rock, Arkansas prior to her death, and was found to have lived with family in Irving, Texas. She was arrested on 4 occasions between December of 1990 and May of 1991. Due to her using of an alias, she is unable to be identified through usual means of investigation. Mercedes had told differing stories about her past, making it hard to separate fact from fiction. She told her friend Andrea Cooksey that she used to be a stripper, was from out of town, and had 2 kids raised by her mother with whom she didn't get along. To others she said she was in witness protection, and that her father was in the mafia. Some people had heard that she was wanted for bank robberies on the East Coast. Police investigating her identity could not discover any robberies she had been tied to, nor any connection to the witness protection program. Another story Mercedes told was about being with an African-American male at a truck stop, where she had been tasked with luring truck drivers to rob them. She claimed that one of these interactions had ended with the death of the truck driver. This led police to suspect that Mercedes had been involved in the November 12, 1988 unsolved murder of truck driver Dwayne McCorkindale. A white female had been seen with a white male and a black male near the crime scene in a brown Ford Pinto. No definitive ties have been established, however. To volunteer at the Salvation Army in El Dorado, Mercedes had shared a story about living on 1100 Katy Street in Dallas, which is the location of a homeless shelter. She said that a daughter had been taken from her while there, and that she had been unable to get the child back because she was using another name. This information could not be verified because records from the shelter for this period had been destroyed by the time the story was being investigated. While in Dallas, Mercedes met James McAlpin. They began a relationship, sometimes after which Mercedes would often find herself in the emergency room, treating injuries suffered at the hands of McAlpin. In June 1991, Mercedes finally left McAlpin and moved in with a friend named Andrea Cooksey. McAlpin continued to reach out to Mercedes, threatening her after the move-out. On July 10th, he managed to get Mercedes to come over to his room at the Whitehall Motel with an offer of money. A neighbor, Roy Charles Meenan, witnessed part of the interaction between Mercedes and McAlpin that night when he stopped by to ask for the return of some cassette tapes he had lent out. Mercedes had indicated to Meenan that he should talk to McAlpin and attempted to leave, going out into the parking lot before McAlpin stopped her and hit her, crying,
"Get back in the room, bitch!"
He dragged her back into the room as Meenan left. From next door, Meenan heard the two arguing back and forth before a gunshot ended the dispute. Witnesses then saw McAlpin flee, getting into his vehicle and speeding off. McAlpin was soon arrested and charged with first-degree murder and second-degree battery. He denied killing Mercedes, claiming that she had shot herself and that he had only hit her. The police dismissed his claim. McAlpin further refused to identify the decedent unless the police would do something for him, only saying he had met her mother and sister when they visited from Florida. With McAlpin not being cooperative, the police looked to Mercedes' possessions to glean her identity, where they found a social security card and an identification card with her photo that identified her as Cheryl Ann Wick. The police traced Wick back to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and contacted her family to inform them of their loss. The Wick family responded by putting the police in touch with the real Cheryl Ann Wick, who was still alive and claimed her identity had been stolen. Wick theorized her social security and identification information had been stolen while she was working as a dancer for a Minneapolis company called Party Time, and denied ever having known Mercedes. The police were left dumbfounded with no clue as to the true identity of her. Recently, McAlpin has claimed to know the true identity of Mercedes and offered to reveal it in exchange for $4,000. To bolster his claim, he has shared select information he claims to be of her past. McAlpin claims that Mercedes had been on the street since she was 16, when an African-American male she fell in love with forced her into prostitution. According to McAlpin, by the time she was an adult, she came to do it willingly. He further shared that Mercedes had avoided being trafficked to Mexico by developing a relationship with a pimp named Jeffrey J.J. Davis of Dallas, before running away with another pimp named Tyrone. Police have dismissed McAlpin as unreliable. 2019, a second cousin of the victim, found living in Alabama, was identified by a genealogist using genetic genealogy after uploading the unidentified woman's autosomal DNA to the GED Match database. The cousin did not recognize the victim, but stated she resembled members of the family. Police hope that through further investigation, Mercedes' true identity will one day be discovered.